Sometimes when we think about issues of spirituality and faith, we might think that things like feelings aren't really important, that they might be a distraction, that faith is kind of this thing we do where we will our desire for God. We make a choice for God, and we were this last Sunday looking at the writings of William of St. Thierry, who was a 12th century Cistercian monk. And he presents to us a very different way of thinking. As a Cistercian monk, he lived a life of contemplative prayer, of work, of regular manual work, of silence, of community life, of solitude, and love and humility. But in a work of his called The Mirror of Faith, he talks about the human being as one who desires God. And if I were to sum up William's thought simply, I'd say I'd say, give permission to God to be alive in you. Let him live within you. Let him be a gift inside of you. Let him draw you to himself by you keeping your eyes on him, and go through the act of falling in love with him. Now, the things of this world, the things that help you think about God and that help you contemplate bigger things, they can help you get to God, but at the end of the day, they aren't the goal. The goal is God himself. And as you fall in love, let the fire of God's love burn away everything that gets in the way, so that in the end, you're in union with God. Let the things and the lies of the world all burn away and embrace love and truth. God is love, and knowing and understanding truth, even when it's hard, is maturity. And once you grow in maturity, you can let this transformative light come through you and shine for others to see. He pictures us as receiving, as first the thing, faith and that desire for God, as actually a gift that he gives. It's not something you have to fake. It's very much like the experience of falling in love with a person. There's this movement within the person that's just filled with a desire for them. I think of my wife, and I think of what it felt like to fall in love with her, and to experience this thing that was towards her but kind of came through me, and desired to be with her. Understanding that things like faith are gifts from God, and faith and hope, they attract us to God, but ultimately, the thing that remains is love. And William says a lot of interesting things. He talks about how in heaven, faith and hope, they aren't needed because they are fulfilled by possessing God. Love is the thing that always remains. And the other thing that he talks about that I think is really necessary, just like in love with a person, is he talks about the idea of being spiritually mature. While Jesus tells us very rightly that we need to have faith and trust like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, that faith does desire maturity. And sometimes we kind of feel satisfied with just keeping things at a base level. But William imagines a world where you and your desire and in your pursuit for God desire to deepen in growth and maturity. That means for me and you that sometimes we hit these points in our faith where we might have bigger questions, and we might wonder bigger things. And the more we pray, think, study, learn, we don't find that there's easy answers at the other end of that. We harbor big questions, and sometimes they can feel like doubts. William doesn't think that's a bad thing. That's actually, he says, it's a good thing. It's a sign of maturity. It's that God is at work in that. It's interesting to think that maybe a time when you experienced struggles and doubts and faith, that was actually a place of growth, that God was trying to get you to your next level. And to not look at it as a problem, but as something that God is working within. The beauty of that is that if you allow your faith in God to mature, then you are in a position where you can share the faith with others, because a faith that is not reflected upon can't shine out and can't attract others. It can't consider the struggles of people who don't have faith. Faith ultimately for William is a gift. It's a wonderful gift. he also, the idea that as we grow, that love does this thing within us, just like in our relationships, just like when we fall in love with somebody, if we enter into a marriage, we see parts of our old life go away. They start to kind of burn away, as you fall in love with somebody, and especially if you have children. There's just things about your old life that you can't do anymore. You can't stay out as late. You can't spend money on whatever you want. You can't think about not think about the other people. You have to do these things. And instead of looking at these as liabilities or losses, that really they are gains, that love burns away the things that are unnecessary, and bring us into union with our beloved. Anyone who has kids, if you were to try to explain having kids to somebody as I'm gonna do this thing in my life where I'm not gonna sleep much, and I'm gonna spend all my money on like diapers, and I have to like watch this person all the time, and I have to always kind of feel on alert, and it would sound like a terrible burden. But if you talked about the experience of having this new person who is brought into your life, and just choosing a new life where the old stuff doesn't matter anymore, that's the difference of falling in love or looking at what you do as an obligation. The last thing I would end with is this. I think that one of the things that spoke to me about William was the idea of seeking the face of God, in desiring the face of God. And a personal theme in my own life has been to seek the face of Christ and to try to find Jesus wherever it takes me, no matter how hard it might be to face sometimes, to seek his face and to deepen in my understanding of him, especially in truth, just even when it's not easy. And he offers this prayer. This is from his sequel to Mirror of Faith called The Enigma of Faith, but I'd like to read it to you because I think it's really, really cool. And this is what William says. He says, "Lord, I will seek your face and continually search for your face as much as I can, and as much as you render me capable of doing. Lord, my God, my one hope, hear me, lest exhausted I lose the will to seek you. May I ardently seek you always. Give the strength to seek you who have given the desire. And when the strength is sufficient, add to the desire which you have given. May I always remember you, understand you, and love you until faithfully remembering you and prudently understanding you and truthfully loving you, O triune God, according to the fullness which you know, you reform me to your image in which you created me." And that's what I'd like to leave you with. Seek the face of Jesus, seek the face of God, fall in love with God, let him love through you, experience transformation and change, experience the fullness of love. Thank you so much.